The Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, and the Trade Union Congress, TUC, have declared an indefinite strike which will begin on October 3, 2023. In a communique read by the two presidents, they said the indefinite strike is due to the alleged insensitivity of the government to the sufferings of Nigerians as a result of the removal of petrol subsidy. Also, the decision to go on the indefinite strike was reached due to the continuous demonstration of unwillingness and complete lack of initiative by the government. The decision was reached despite the plea by the Minister of Labour and Productivity, Simon Lalong, for more time.
The councils deliberated on the continued refusal of the federal government to engage in a meaningful and constructive dialogue within the ambit of good faith, given the 21 days ultimatum and the subsequent successful 2 days nationwide strike of the 5th and 6th of September and other meetings that were supposed to demonstrate the preparedness of the Nigerian workers to push through their decision to embark on an indefinite nationwide strike if their demands were not met.
Consequently, the NLC and TUC NEC section resolved as follows. 1. To, in the spirit of the Independence Day celebration, and to demonstrate our resolve for a truly independent Nigeria, to take our destinies in our own hands and rescue our nation. 2. To embark on an indefinite and total shutdown of the nation beginning on 0 hours, Tuesday, the 3rd day of October 2023. 3. To direct all workers in Nigeria to withdraw their services from their respective workplaces commencing from the 3rd of October 2023. 4. To direct all affiliates and state councils to immediately start mobilizing accordingly for action to organize street protests and rally until government responds positively to our demands. 5. To enjoin all patriotic Nigerians to join hands across the nation to assist this government, put the people back at the center of its policies and programs.
Well, for more on the strike declaration, we are now joined by the Trade Union Congress President, Festus Osifo. Good morning, Mr. Osifo, and welcome to the morning show.
Morning.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Well, Festus Osifo, I've just given a summary of the resolutions of organized labor yesterday, as reported. You are president of the Trade Union Congress. Organized private sector is also protesting, saying labor should not go ahead. Do you think that there is any hope in the horizon that something magical could happen between now and October 3? Maybe government will say, oh, we are going back to status quo, antebellum. We're going to provide some magic. Is there the likelihood that something else can happen so that the fears, particularly, not of ordinary Nigerians, but of organized private sector, can be allayed?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ruben. First of all, I wish to congratulate Muslims the world over, most especially those in Nigeria. I congratulate them on the celebration of Eid al-Maulud. Coming right down to the question that you have just asked. Yes, we started this journey a very long time ago. If you could remember very well, the fuel subsidy was literally the pronouncement by the government happened on the day of inauguration, May 29th. And if you look at between that time and now, normally what Labour does before now is that when such thing comes, we jump into the street. But we said, okay, for now, let us have a different approach. Let us do a lot of engagement. And we have done those engagements. And the organized private sectors, they could bear us witness the numbers of engagements that we have done. Myself and my colleague, the president of NLC, we have met with the president of Nigeria, who gave us assurances that within days that they are going to make,
he's going to make some pronouncement based on our demand. Because the one he made in the national broadcast, we said no, it was not far-reaching and it wasn't sufficient. So we put other issues forward. We put the issues about the wage awards forward to him, right there, right then. We put the issues about freezing of tax for the low-income earners, both in the public and the private sector. We also talked about how it could also stimulate, those people working in the informal economy. We also talked about the issues of CNG. In fact, we put forward things that could be done in the immediate, things that could be done in the medium term, and what we could do in the long term. So all these were discussed with the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This talk happened sometime around, I think precisely August 2nd, the day of our protest. August 2nd till today, it's over 6 weeks. So assurances were made. But up to today, we have seen nothing. Then beyond that as well, we also visited the National Assembly, where we had, in the invite of the Senate President. So we had an audience, over 3-4 hours conversation with the Senate President and his team. So we also put all this forward. We even went further to profile solutions on what we think could be done. So we did all that. Then after then, the cabinet was inaugurated. We had consultations and conversations with the Minister of Labor and Employment, as well as the Minister of State for Labor and Employment. So nobody today can accuse Labour of a knee-jerk reaction. No. Because we took this time to have a lot of consultations, to discuss with them and propose solutions on what could be done. Because we think that these things could be done. So the organized private sector, at the end of the day, should also realize that we have done our path by putting all this forward to government. But what has come out of it, it is really nothing to be celebrated. Because the last meeting we had with the Minister of Labor, that was about a week ago. So we put some of these issues forward. So he told us that, okay, the president was not around, that the president traveled, and that when the president comes back, that they are going to further the conversation. Remember, that meeting we had last week, Tuesday, was a continuation of a meeting we had 2 weeks earlier. That means 3 weeks ago, that was also the same story when when the president was in India. That the president was in India to attend the G20 summit, and that when the president comes back. But we also queried some of that. That if the president travel, we have the vice president at home. The vice president should be empowered to resolve and solve most of these challenges. So that was our push to government. But they told us 3 weeks ago that, okay, let's hold on. President will be back, and in 2 weeks' time, these issues should be resolved. We head back. We got to 2 weeks, the issues were not resolved. We had a meeting with him again. And he said we should wait for further 2 weeks. And that 2 weeks is going to terminate next week, Tuesday, that we are commencing the strike. But we said, okay, we are giving you 1 week, which is exactly today. But the question is that all we have been receiving is, promises, we will do something, very soon pronouncement will be made. But these are promises upon promises upon promises. Meanwhile, Nigerians are at the receiving end. I can tell you, Dr. Ruben, that if you come to Abuja, for example, if you come to some of the federal ministries, some of the people that are working, those that are in grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, most of these people, I can tell you that they sleep around because where they stay far off. They stay in the suburbs in Abuja. So what they do at the end of the day, they come to work on Monday and they sleep around in their offices till Friday because they cannot afford the transportation to be going home and returning on a daily basis. So they sleep around their offices. So we have real challenge and it must be solved.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, from what you've said, it's in agreement with what the NLC president himself had said, saying that government had continued to demonstrate grandstanding. They had forestalled all the avenues for peaceful dialogue, and it doesn't seem as if they are ready to make any changes or do anything, positive. But on the other side, we see government coming out to appeal to organized labor as if you are the ones who have the problem. You're the ones who are not being patient. What you're asking for are almost impossible demands in terms of the plans are more mid-term, long-term plans. And then we have the House of Reps also appealing to organized labor. So what do we do then? Because you're saying that they are frustrating efforts for dialogue, and they are failing on the promises that they make in terms of give us a week, give us 2 weeks. What is the assurance that this strike you're going to embark on next week, if nothing happens between now and next week, is going to move them? Because so far, despite your attempts at negotiation and peaceful dialogue, it's just been forestalled. Is it that government just doesn't care about changes or the people?
Yeah, so strike is always a last resort. And that was why we embarked on this long journey. Today is 27th day of September. The subsidy was literally pronounced to be removed on May 29th. That is about 4 months ago. For any government that is serious, for any government that is looking at the plight of the people, I think 4 months, about 120 days, is sufficient for you to have put some things in place, for you to have put some social safety nets in place, for you to have defined a framework on the way forward. So for the the Federal House of Assembly, the House of Representatives, who said we should be, patient, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, for us, he should also confer with the Senate President, because the Senate President is the chairman of the National Assembly. So we met with the Senate President, and having met with him, he promised us that he was to meet with the President that same week. But up till today, there is no response. So all we have seen in all these are just mere promises, mere rhetorics, and mere talk. So for us, we have exhausted all that tools within our toolbox. Currently, we are deploying the last option that we were waiting back and holding back not to have deployed over this period, thinking that, okay, this is a new government, let us give them the benefit of the doubt. But 120 days is sufficient to have done a lot. And for us, we are determined of Tuesday. But what happened between now and then? Who knows tomorrow? Okay,
so Mr. Osifo, a couple of things. I'd like to get the numbers out. All these demands, how much more is it going to cost government as we speak? This increase in salary, this new minimum wage you want, how much have you put a cost to it? And secondly, how are they going to pay for it? How much is the cost of all of these new demands? Freezing of taxes, for instance, and all of that. Okay, if you freeze taxes, grade level 4, grade level 5, how much is it going to be the cost in the end? How much is it going to cost government if they start to pay the new minimum wage? And how much is it going to be? Let's put a cost to it.
Okay, thank you so much, Rufai. First of all, if you remember, the day the president made a broadcast to the nation, he told the nation, I think it was August 1, if my memory serves me right, he said, and he told the nation that, that based on this, that in 1 month, that the government has saved 1 trillion naira. That was what the president told the nation. So if you have saved 1 trillion naira in 1 month, then we expected that, in the last 3 months, you must have saved 3 trillion naira. So based on that context, so what we have asked is this. If you were paying subsidy, you said you were paying about 400, 500 billion naira, per month for subsidy before then. Then later you now said you have saved 1 trillion naira. So the question is that how much of these would you use to ameliorate the pains of the people? So looking at it succinctly, what we are asking as at today, which we communicated to Mr. President in the meeting we had with him, was that the issue of minimum wage, it takes time for us to have the dialogue and conversation, because we have to bring in the organized private sector as represented by NECA. We have to bring in the state government representative. So it's a bit protracted discussion. So what we told him was that, number one, that the issue of wage award, that you can make pronouncements relating to that. Then why we also went to the issues of taxation was this. If you remember very well, they said that they've secured 800 million naira loan from World Bank to send to give to the vulnerable Nigerians. So we asked the questions. Who are these vulnerable Nigerians? Where do they live? Where are their addresses? Where are their BVN numbers? Break this social register that you have.
Mr.
Yes.
Osifo, with due respect, you've not answered my question. My question is, how much is it going to cost?
Yes,
this
I'm
new
coming
wage?
there.
How much in billion terms, in trillion terms, is going to cost to the federal government? What is the new bill? If you freeze taxes for level 4, level 5, first, how many level 4, level 5 workers are in the federal civil service that are your members? How much is it going to cost when you freeze their taxes? And how much is it going to cost when you start to pay this new minimum wage you're asking for? Put a number to it. That's all I ask for, Mr. Osifo.
Rufai, I said we are not asking for new minimum wage. We are not asking for new minimum wage. So that should be very clear. Labour is not asking today for new minimum wage. So what we are asking is that government on its own should do something about wage award for its federal workers. That's number one. Then number two, in the issue of tax freezing, from our estimation, if government, for those within those brackets, they are not really much. If today, in the entire federal civil service, we have about 600,000 workers, much more. If you look at all the agencies, parastatals, and all that, for those within that bracket, they are not much. Because if you join a civil service today with HND, for example, you are going to start at grade level 8. Then if you join with OND, in most cases, you start at grade level 6. So what that means is that it's those that joined with school certificate. And the population of these people, they have less than 2% of those that work in the civil service today. So from our estimation, in order to be able to, if you freeze that taxation for them within that bracket, it should not be more than something around maybe about 10 to 15 billion naira maximum. If you freeze it for them, then you can decide to do that freeze for a while. If you do that freeze for a while, then after you have put in the medium term strategy and the long term strategy, then you can now remove the freeze. So we are not saying you should freeze it forever, but you could say in the next 1 year, in the next 2 years, that you could do a freeze.
Festus Osifo, if you can hear me.
So it should be about 15 billion per annum, 15 billion per annum maximum.
President of the TUC, if you can hear me. 2 quick things, because we seem to be running out of time.
Yeah.
Number one, the Nigerian government is broke. Although only yesterday, the IMF resident representative in Nigeria, was saying that the debt to GDP ratio of 87 trillion naira, debt to GDP ratio is still very moderate. But what we know is that government is broke. Now, all these demands from labor, where do you think government can find the money from to meet all those demands? That's number one. Number two, during the warning strike, September 5 to 6, TUC went to meet with the Minister of Labor and Employment and the Minister of State for Labor and Employment. NLC didn't show up, creating an impression that there was some kind of division within the ranks of labor leaders. What is the guarantee that TUC and NLC on this matter are on the same page? So that we don't wake up tomorrow and we hear that TUC is meeting with government and NLC is not there. And TUC is saying something else. Because the issue of trust is very important. And I told Comrade Ajero, on another program, that created doubts in the minds of the public. And I thought that morning strike was partially successful. Where is TUC actually standing in this matter? Those 2 issues, quickly.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ruben. In the very first one that you have raised, I have said it earlier, that the President and Commander-in-Chief on its own came and said that the country has saved 1 trillion naira. So that is savings. The federal government went everywhere to announce that if subsidy is removed, that they are going to save substantial money. So the question we have asked is that where are the money that you have saved from this subsidy? Part of this money that you must have saved, you should deploy it on your citizens. That is what we have asked. Is that too much to ask? And so we don't expect them to go anywhere and start borrowing money. They told us that they are going to save money. So where is the money that they have saved, and how have they deployed this money? Then secondly too, we also talked about the cost of governance. We also made some far-reaching, arguments on what could be done in that regard. That today the profligacy in government is just too much. So if there is a reduction in the cost of governance, a lot of money could be saved. Then, but quickly, let me go to the last one that you raised. On that particular subject, for us, we have said it in several fora we both have NEC, National Executive Council meeting, who comes up to take decisions from time to time. So for us, the issues have been the same. And what are those issues? How can we, fight for our members, and how can we mitigate, the sufferings of our members today? So the objective of both TUC and the NLC has been the same. It could be that at a particular point, we were deploying different strategies, but that did not remove our eyes from the ball. And what is that ball? That ball is what I stated earlier on how we could deploy everything to ensure that we get to that desired end. So if at a particular time TUC decided to have further push, further conversation, and make some far-reaching proposals, that was okay. And NLC at that point also went on an indefinite, a warning strike. That was extremely okay, because as we say in union, that we have a toolbox. In the toolbox, we have consultation, we have confrontation, we have protest, we have strike. They are all there. So at a particular point, you could decide on the one to deploy. So, but after our NEC meeting yesterday, we felt that, okay, we have exhausted all our arsenals, and that the final thing to be done today is a strike. That was why you saw a joint statement. And that joint statement, we shall follow it through until victory is ascertained.
Well, we'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Festus Osifo, President, Trade Union Congress, for joining us. Although on the issue of the 1 trillion that you referred to, I thought what Mr. Olayemi Cardoso quoted yesterday on the floor of the Senate during his screening was $1 trillion, dollars GDP growth. But in any case, don't let's split hairs over that. Thank you very much, Mr. Festus Osifo, for joining us.